Zelenskyy shared that he spoke with Prime Minister Modi, during which the Ukrainian leader called for India to support the peace effort to end the war. In their phone call, Prime Minister Modi reiterated India's stand in the Ukraine war. On a number of international forums, Prime Minister Modi has emphasized upon the importance of avoiding conflict with the line, "It is not the era for war." Following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, India adopted a position of strategic neutrality, balancing its historical ties with Russia and its strategic partnership with the West. However, it is questionable whether India is ready to play a larger role in the resolution of the Ukraine-Russia conflict. Now, India has done its share of mediation. Let's account for what India has done in the past. India chaired the Neutral Nations Repatriation Commission during the Korean War. India handled POW exchange of 75,000 prisoners. India mediated between USSR and Austria for the withdrawal of the Soviet troops from Austrian soil. India played a role in persuading Austria to declare neutrality. India's intervention in Vietnam War failed to reduce the escalation of conflict, but India's strong stand against the war was admired across the world. Former Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi's intervention in Sri Lankan civil war in late 1980s was a big failure despite the signing of the Indo-Sri Lankan Accord and deploying the Indian peacekeeping force. But indeed, India was there. And under former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, India helped resolve the civil war between Maoists and Nepal's monarchy. 12-point agreement was signed in 2005, bringing an end to decades of violence in the country. Now, let's look at the big question that emerged from this. What can be India's role in Ukraine conflict? Can Prime Minister Modi mediate between Zelenskyy and Putin? What is the Indian leverage in war? Diplomacy today has boiled down to hard power. Will soft or smart touch work? On this issue, I'm joined by Vlada Galan, President and Chairman, Board of International Ukrainian Crisis Fund. Thank you so much, madam, for joining me. And Ambassador Ashok Sajjanhar. Thank you so much, sir, for being with me on this show.
Thank you.
Vlada, straight to you. My question is, what role does Ukraine envisage of India in the conflict which is taking place, and Russians are insistent on exchange of territory, Donbass, and other such vexed issues?
Thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure to be here. At the end of the day, the Russians trust India much more than they are ever going to trust the United States. And that is attributed to a relationship that these two countries have had for over 100 years. And that's the roots of how far that relationship dates back. And so India can absolutely play a role of a peacemaker. And what Zelenskyy is certainly looking for is he's looking for India to give some kind of, virtuous signaling, international signaling, to end this conflict in a stronger way than India has, let's say, in the past. I think he's also looking to deepen the ties of a strategic partnership with India. And I really think that Zelenskyy realizes that he needs an honest broker and one that Russia might trust. And I'm just not so sure that Russia certainly trusts the United States in this process, despite the fact that Putin certainly has a much better relationship with President Donald Trump than he did with President Joe Biden. Nonetheless, that's not per se good enough. And that's why we've seen a bit of a stall when it comes to Putin. And let's not forget how the United States used actually India as a bit of a pawn in this game by upping tariffs on oil exports. And then, this really brought Russia to the table, in my opinion. So I do think that what Zelenskyy sees here and what the Ukrainians see here is India can play a role. We don't always have to use India as a pawn. We can actually invite India to the table to really help bring forward a peace deal. And I think the Ukrainian people would certainly love to see that.
So, Ambassador Sajjanhar, what is the Indian leverage when it comes to Ukraine? Because if we look at all the articles that are being published, it's about Donbass, it's about a territorial swap, it's about multiple other things which are hard issues of the ground, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. I think the biggest advantage that India has when we speak about this conflict which has been going on now for more than 3.5 years. Number one is that, as it has been stated by you and also by the other panelists, that India has good relations, excellent relations with Russia, as well as with the West. Prime Minister Modi has been to Moscow. He's also traveled to Kyiv from Poland, from Warsaw. He took the 10-hour-long train journey. He has, right from the beginning of the war, he's been saying that this is not an era of war, this is time for dialogue and diplomacy. The other aspect in this is that India does not have any agenda. India does not have any personal, individual interest which it would like to advance. What it really wants is, it wants peace, it wants security, it wants stability. Because also as the voice of the global South, this war has been hurting the interests of the global South greatly. So I think both sides can trust India that it is not doing something which will meet its own needs, its own requirements, its own selfish interests, but it is doing it for the interests of the two countries involved, for bloodshed to stop, for violence, for destruction to stop, and so that the world can also live in peace. Both of these countries have great contributions that they can make to the world in economy, in strategic security and peace. So this is what what our interest is. It is not that we have military leverage, we are trying to pressure one against the other. We are economic leverage, which we are trying to use one against the other. Although, I would tend to disagree with my other panelist who said that it is the pressure on India that has brought Mr. Putin to the negotiating table. In my view, not at all. I don't think that has had any role to play whatsoever. Mr. Putin has been in a position of power and authority for the last 25 years. If